It is to my fullest belief that as human beings we were born into a sinful world as a result of the fall of Adam and Eve and the disobedience to God as stated in the book of Genesis in the Holy Bible. In concerns to a historical biblical approach, it is logical and relevant to say that we inherit sin at birth and are therefore sinful by nature. There are many stories throughout the Bible, as well as history in general, that reflect historical, immoral, and unethical acts of sin, ranging from when Cain slew Abel in the book of Genesis and in the Old Testament, all the way to the New Testament, and how Paul, who was once named Saul and an opposer of the Christian faith, murdered Christians and was later converted into a Christian and an apologetist and imprisoned himself for his beliefs and faith in the Bible and Jesus Christ. Lynn 2010 stated, "We are not who we think we are, and we're not who others think we are, but we are who we think others think we are." In August of 1971, researchers and professionals at Stanford University, located in California, conducted a study aimed toward examining and analyzing inmates imprisoned in correctional facilities and institutions. Before I get started in explaining about the Stanford prison experiment, let me first give some data and statistics about the year of 1971. According to the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitations, in December of 1971, there was an estimated 20,294 inmates that made up the prison population in the California prison system. From December 1931, in the year 1970 to December 31st of 1971, there was an estimated decrease in the prison population of roughly 7,000, which was due to reform in the correctional institutions that led to an ultimate high of prisoners being paroled, released, and discharged. According to the Stanford prison experiment and Zimbardo et al., 1971, on a quiet Sunday morning in August 1971, a Palo Alto, California police officer swept through the town, picking up college students as part of a mass arrest for violation of Penal Code 211, armed robbery and burglary, a 459 PC. The suspect was picked up at his home, charged one of his legal rights, spread-eagled against the police car, searched and handcuffed. Often as surprised and curious neighbors looked on. The suspect was put in the rear of a police car and carried off to the police station, the sirens welling. The car entered the station. The suspect was removed, brought inside the station, formally booked, again warned of his rights, fingerprinted, and a complete identification made. The suspect was then taken to a holding cell where he was left blindfolded to ponder his fate and wonder what he had done to get himself into this mess. What he had done was to answer an ad in a few weeks later, which appeared in the Palo Alto City newspaper, calling for volunteers for this study of the psychological effects of prison life. Researchers and professionals want to see just what the behavioral and psychological consequences of becoming a prisoner or prison guard exactly was. To do this, they decided to set up their own prison, to create and simulate a prison environment, and then to carefully note the effects of the total institution on the behavior of all within its walls. Over 70 applicants who answered the ad and were given diagnostic interviews, an extensive battery of psychological tests administered by professionals to eliminate all of those candidates with any kind of psychological problem, medical disability, or history of crime or drug use, until professionals were left with the final sample of 24 subjects. They were all college students from all over the United States and Canada and wanted to earn $15 a day by participating in a psychological study. The study of prison life began with an average group of healthy, intelligent, middle-class college males. The boys were arbitrarily divided into two subgroups by a flip of the coin. Half were assigned to be guards, the others were to be prisoners. It is important to remember that at the beginning of the experiment, there was no difference at all between the boys who were randomly assigned the treatment of being a prisoner or those assigned to be guards. To better understand psychology of imprisonment, which professionals were trying to stimulate in the study, they called upon the services of experienced consultants. Now, the findings that they found was quite unique, being that these kids had never been in trouble, they never used drugs, they had no history of any psychological defect or behavioral issues. It was going to be quite unique for both researchers and professionals in what they were going to gain. Now, in conclusions to the study, it came out that there were many of the young men who actually weren't able to handle the oppression and the pressure that was put on them during this study. But in the end, it was actually quite unique to find out that it didn't permanently affect any of the individuals that were part of the study. So that was quite unique to see, being that in our own society, prison can very well affect an individual, especially being that the prison systems in America are designed and aimed at helping individuals to be reprimanded and held accountable for the convictions of the crimes they have done, but also in efforts of rehabilitating them and making them contributing and positive contributing members to the society. Now, Haslam and Reicher stated in the article titled "When Prisoners Take Over Prison, A Social Psychology of Resistance," that there is a tendency for social psychologists to focus on processes of oppression rather than resistance, which has been exemplified and entrenched by the Stanford prison experiment. Researchers and commentators have come to see domination and intimidation, tyranny and abuse in correctional facilities worldwide as neutral and inevitable. However, research suggests that where members of low-status social groups are bound together by a sense of shared low social identity, the most effective bases within leadership and organization are aimed toward rehabilitating and transitioning convicted offenders back into society, offering them a chance of redemption in efforts of them to become positive contributing members of their communities and societies. However, as recent research and statistics have shown, the population within the prison systems and institutions in America have grown tremendously, especially those of the great state of California. So who is to blame? Do we blame peace officers at failing to be able to control and protect communities and societies as a whole? Do we blame politicians and laws that have been passed? Do we blame our judiciary system? Or do we simply blame the President of the United States? I believe that there is no one person or group of people to blame. As individuals, especially as American citizens, it is ultimately up to us. However, there are already actions being taken in our society and in the state of California specifically. In 2010, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation reported that the prison population was at an estimated 162,821, far from the original 20,294 inmates from 1971. However, in 2013, and with the help of the implementation of State Bill 105 and reforms to California's criminal and justice system, the inmate population was already reduced to 118,738 inmates. Now, with that being said, they have a goal of, in 2016, the bill set to set an additional decline of the California prison population to an estimated 112,165 prison inmates. Although social deviance, I have found, does play a factor in which socially oppressed people may gain identity in is social oppression, in that people who are affected by it due to individual choices, or the fact that socially oppressed people generally gain a sense of resistance to their oppressors and are viewed in such a way because they go against socially accepted norms and standards and become products of their environments. Haslam and Reicher report that the most effective environment in which rehabilitation has been effective are those of which have focused on helping individuals to gain a sense of a positive identity, helping individuals to counteract stress of being institutionalized, securing social support after they have transitioned back into society, and helping people to understand the resistance and that resistance and going against the norms isn't always a bad thing. Social oppression and unacceptance has been around since the fall of mankind. As seen throughout the Bible, from the Old Testament, the story of Moses going up against the Egyptians who enslaved and imprisoned millions of people, to the New Testament and the story of Paul and how he went up against the socially accepted norms and standards of the Roman Empire. He himself, who was once imprisoned for his beliefs as a Christian, once opposed Christianity, but with his faith in Jesus Christ and the Holy Bible, that helped him open his eyes to gain a better understanding and worldview of why we as human beings were put on this earth and made in the image of God. Lynn 2010 once said, "The world says in order to make it, you must be perfect. However, God said, I made you, now let me perfect you." Even though we are born into a sinful nature, it is through Jesus Christ that we are offered redemption and can be redeemed through Him. It is through the Trinity that we are able to gain understanding through multiple lenses and empirical research and evidence, such as the Stanford Prison Experiment, that help us to continue to understand people as professionals, professors and students of psychology and sociology. It is up to us to make the world a better place, just as Jesus strived and still strives to do to this day. Now, just a little personal testimony. I was once incarcerated, and in that, I also watched many of my family members be incarcerated and become institutionalized. And I would have to say that simply we are products of our environments, and it is up to us to decide where we would like to go in life, because sin is always going to be in the world. However, through Jesus Christ, all things are possible, as said by Paul in Philippians 4:13. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.